Hello fellow YouTubers, I'm going to do a reading from my first self-published novel, Aggravation. 133,000 words, 512 pages, and it's available as a softcover only on CreateSpace. Our brief synopsis of the book. In an attempt to leave the aggravation of city life behind him, Clyde Phillimore moves to the small country town of Welcome, taking up residence in the historical MacArthur House, a house that quickly becomes a home until he begins to experience strange and otherworldly occurrences that lead to the discovery of a diary of the house's former residents. And what he reads is beyond his writer's most vivid imaginations. And so it begins. Sucked into a dark past that will take him and his new best friend Sandy Harold Merriweather. Are you daft, Clyde? On a journey to the depths of hell and beyond the stars. Will they be able to free the tortured souls from the demon that is tormenting them? Will Clyde cede to the obsession part of the diary has invoked in him? Well, I'm going to start reading from page 24. Living all of his life close to Sydney had always been just another face among the teeming proliferation of people that frequented the streets at any time, day or night. A virtual nobody. He had always liked that. His uncle, a man who had spent most of his adulthood on the land, had once said that in his hometown he was somebody, but in the city he ceased to exist. Clyde didn't know if his uncle liked that or not, or if that feeling of being just another face in the crowd made his hometown seem all that more homely. Clyde is familiar with proprietors and the staff of the shops he regularly patronises in Welcome: supermarket, newsagent, butcher, pharmacy, hardware, bakery, post office, the service station where he purchased petrol and his car service, and of course the cafe. But the publicans and staff of the two pubs, and the managers and staff of the bowling and golf clubs, he doesn't know at all. Wouldn't know them if he fell over them in the street. Nor does he know any of the patrons, except perhaps for Sandy Merriweather, Bob Lawrence, Louise Mapleton, and of course Charlie Jessup and the Curtises that so often frequent those four establishments. Besides the smell of stale beer and cigarette smoke, places like those were always noisy, and Clyde didn't like the constant babble of voices which, more often than not, were raised in order to be heard over the noise those voices were responsible for in the first place. Clyde couldn't understand what those people found so interesting to talk so incessantly about so often. Clyde was basically a self-educated individual who was more than capable of holding his own with anyone on just about any subject, but he doubted those who imbibed on a daily basis had the capacity to discuss local and world events. So what the hell did they talk about? Once comments were made concerning the weather and the effects it was or was not having on the pastures and crops, the well-being of each other, that the inquirer didn't really care about one way or the other. Their feelings regarding their favourite football team's latest win or loss, the ousting of a particular person from the latest reality or cooking show, and who will pay for the next round of drinks, what was left for them to go on about, on and on and on? It was a conundrum to Clyde, and quite honestly, he didn't care. After all, one's man meat, another man's poison, and who was he to question and criticise the choices of others? And besides, he hadn't moved to the country to begin a social life. Good God, no, and may heaven forbid. And the fewer friends he made, the better. No, he had moved to the country to isolate himself from as many people as possible, and away from the noise of the city that had begun to take its toll. He was 65 now, not old by today's standard, but 6 months ago he had felt every year of his 64 years, but now 65 was but a number. The air he breathed was sweeter than any air he had ever breathed, the water cleaner than any water he had ever drank, the warmth from the open fire unlike any he had ever experienced. Food tasted better, and the tea he brewed from tank water had a taste the likes of which he had never known. He slept better, awoke feeling refreshed like he did when a child, was more relaxed within himself, and was enjoying the simple things that life had to offer that hadn't been on offer before. Like looking at the stars at night. In the city you could only see the brightest of stars because of the veil of artificial light. But in the country, the night sky was a vision splendid. So many stars that at times it dazzled Clyde's eyes, seemingly so close on occasions that he could reach up and touch them. A wonderful illusion that as yet he hasn't taken for granted and tired of. He doubts that he ever will. The full moon so close at times it was as if the Earth and its satellite had halved the distance between each other. The sound of rain on the corrugated iron roof that lulled and reassured that all was well in that particular small part of the country that was the driest on the face of the planet. The earthy smell of damp soil carried on the wind the news that the rain was falling on an elsewhere somewhere in the distant near or far that refreshed and invigorated. Time spent in Welcome State Forest were particularly rewarding for Clyde. 15 minutes by car and he entered a vast area of 8,000 hectares of isolation and quiet, except for the odd rifle shot that wasn't available on a conscious level outside that of a soundproof room or padded cell. Not that Clyde had ever been in a padded cell. He would have ended up in one if he'd remained in Glebe. To that there was no doubt. Sometimes the quiet was a little overwhelming, particularly around the area of Tor Hill, so named because of the large marble-like granites on the top. Clyde hasn't ventured to the top as yet, but he plans to in the not-too-distant future. The hill, according to the topographical map he purchased from the newsagent, rises 165 metres, which makes it just shy of being a mountain. Clyde reckons it'll feel like a mountain by the time he reaches the top, after what must be a 45-degree incline all the way. Not a walk in the park, it isn't. He can't help but wonder if the MacArthur sisters had ever scaled the hill, or even if they had commenced a dig in search of the pyramid they were convinced was buried under it. Common sense tells him it's nothing but a fanciful notion, but his other senses tell him a different story, that there is something strange and eerie about the hill and its immediate surroundings. Supernatural? Perhaps. Supernatural? Perhaps not. But weird nevertheless. He can feel it. Are you game enough to come here at night? Is a question he has asked himself every time he visits the locality, but as yet he hasn't been able to answer. Perhaps it's the isolation that, for a few daylight hours, is a wonderful thing to experience. But a man city-born and raised, too much isolation, especially at night, might prove to be too much for him to bear. And perhaps he feels fear itself, a rational state of mind, but an irrational hypothesis. He keeps telling himself that there is nothing here during the day that isn't here at night. And he would be safer here at night than he would be in Bishop Park. But still he hesitates. And he knows there isn't a boogeyman or predators waiting to prey upon him, just harmless creatures that go bump in the night. And he is, after all, a grown man and not a boy. So surely he is well past being haunted by the monsters that once lurked in his id and the pulling up of the bed covers because of them. But still he waits. There is no signal for his mobile phone here, reason enough for one of age not to venture into the unknown, or so he keeps reminding himself. Are you game enough, Clyde, to admit there's only one reason holding you back? One reason that you don't want to admit to because you think it's silly and beyond all reason. The one thing you've heard about so often happening to so many around the world, but could only be a figment of their deluded imaginations. Alien abduction. Isn't that what you're afraid of? Ever since you heard the words sightings and UFOs come out of Bob Lance's mouth, you've wondered if perhaps the sisters weren't as nutty as fruitcakes the way people had made them out to be. that where there's smoke there's bound to be fire sooner or later. Wasn't that the reason you didn't buy acreage out of town? Acreage that would have guaranteed peace and quiet, far removed from those people and their infernal noise and all the other noises that aggravate you so. Isn't it, Clyde? Isn't it? Safety in numbers is the reason you decided to live in town. To be able to see lights that are man-made rather than those of unknown origin. So reassuring as opposed to intangible. Are you game enough, Clyde? Are you? Talk it over with Sandy. He who has his feet firmly planted on the ground and hasn't seen anything stranger than his neighbour's hair and rollers wearing a mud pack, but believes what he doesn't want to believe because it must be true. Angels or aliens? Take your pick. True or false? 6 of one or half a dozen of the other. But not the same. Clyde keeps reminding himself that he must ask his friend for his opinion, if for no other reason than to confide in someone he knows will listen. After all, confession is good for the soul. Well, just a brief reading. I hope you enjoyed. If you would like to hear more, please subscribe, rate and comment. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.